So you've been raising babies, building businesses, pouring out love all day, and maybe, just maybe, you're wondering what it looks like to open your heart again. Let's talk boundaries, red flags, faith, healing, and what it means to believe you're still worthy of softness, connection, and love. Hey, hey, beautiful souls. Welcome to the Solo Mama Show, your space for motherhood, miracles, and making it through one deep breath at a time. I'm Marylyne, solo mama of two amazing boys, woman of color, entrepreneur, and grace-filled realist figuring it out with God, grit, and a whole lot of snacks. This is your safe space. Real talk, soft landings, and zero judgment. Whether you're thriving or just trying not to cry in the pantry, you're seen here. So grab your tea, your towel, or your toddler, and let's get into it. Today, we're getting into something that's as complicated as it is real: dating as a solo mom. Whether you're just curious, cautiously optimistic, or completely over it, you are not alone. So let's get into the emotional truth of dating as a solo mom. There's the mix of desire and dread, wanting companionship, but fearing disappointment. The feeling like you have to choose between being a mother and being a woman, navigating the fear of getting it wrong in front of your kids, the myth of that good mamas don't date or put themselves before their kids or try to find happiness outside of the home, and how trauma, heartbreak, or even past relationships affect your willingness to even try again. Now, I have had to come to grips with, in order to actually build a community here and to be open and you guys understand my story, I have to actually tell my story. And though I've been very, very private about my dating life, whether it's past relationships, meaning past, or recent past, I tried not to put too much out there. But how do I talk about dating as a solo mama if I don't talk to you guys about actually dating as a solo mama? And I've had experiences in both avenues. Dating while I only had Ethan and what that looked like. And I took a huge break. I went almost 5 years. I'll say 4. We didn't quite hit the 5-year mark. 4.5 years without dating anyone. Tried here and there to like kind of get on the apps and see what's out there. Also because I don't leave the house, so where else was I going to meet anybody? And maybe have a conversation here, maybe go on a date, but it didn't turn into anything until we finally did find a relationship and what that looks like. Right. So dating with one child was one thing. In the beginning of my relationship with Jagger's father, I wasn't a solo parent yet, right? So Ethan's father was still alive. We weren't together. We hadn't been together for a little bit. And at that time, I had just finished school and moved back home from Buffalo. And so my mom was renting an apartment someplace already. And I was like, hey, Mom, why don't we move in together? Because rents are crazy and maybe you can help me out a little bit. And I'll, together we can get you into a nicer place, because the place that she was in was like run down, and not run down, but it wasn't up to my standards. So anyways, solo dating or single mama dating at that time was me trying to live 2 lives at once, because part of what people don't talk about is that balance between when do you introduce your 2 lives, right? Like, when does this person who I'm just getting to know and figuring out, are they crazy? Are they psycho? Are they for real? Are they going to last? Do I even want to have them be a serious part of my life, meet the most important part of my life, the person that I'm trying to protect and guide and keep sheltered for as long as I possibly can, right? So when do those two worlds collide? Sometimes never. Sometimes you learn real quick that that man don't even need to be in your life, let alone meet your child. But Jagger's father and I dated for about 6 years. So in that time, in the beginning, at least, when I was still staying with my mom, again, what that meant was having two very different lives. During the day, I was a mom, all things mom, football practice, soccer practice. At some point, Ethan was on a a wall climbing team. Don't ask me why. He woke up one day and decided that was something he wanted to try. And if you say you want to try it, I'm going to figure it out. But I would come home. I would put my kid, I would do dinner, shower, bedtime, read the books, whatever, put him to sleep. And then at 10 o'clock at night, I'd pack my little spin a night bag and I would go over to Jagger's father's house. Now, let's remember, I lived with my mom. My kid was not left in the house by himself at 6 years old, okay? But he would be asleep. So I would wait until he was asleep, no matter what time that was, and whether that meant he wanted me to lay with him until he fell asleep or he needed bedtime stories, whatever. When I was home, I was his mama. And he would fall asleep, and I wouldn't like race out right away. I'd have to make sure that he was actually asleep, get his things ready for the next day. And then I would go, and now I get to be a girlfriend, right? So it's two very separate lives. And I would be over there and I'd get to be a girlfriend for a couple of hours. And at the crack of dawn, actually before the sun came up, because at 5 o'clock, I was leaving his house so I could go home and be there before my son woke up. So I would be the one to wake him, so I could be the one to get him ready for school, drop him off at school, and do the whole thing all over again. I ran myself ragged for years doing that. And doing that for so long kind of, I don't want to say is what ended our relationship, but keeping those things separate for so long made it hard to eventually bring them together. Everyone was so used to not having to deal with the other. It's a lot. That's not even the point of the story. But then we fast forward to now. Now I'm lucky enough that Ethan is, again, we've said this before, old enough to watch his little brother. And being an entrepreneur means that my time is my time. So if you meet the right person who's understanding, there's the possibility that, maybe we just go on a couple lunch dates while the kids are at school, or, childcare, while they're being taken care of. I have a couple hours from this time to this time. It takes a very special person to understand that and work around that and be willing to grow from that. But you can, again, I'm in the position right now that because we are our own little village, the three of us figuring it out, if I want to go on an evening date, I can do that within reason, right? Not every night, maybe not a certain night of the week. If somebody has to wake up really early, or if we got home too late from an activity where it just wouldn't make sense. But still trying to figure out that balance, right? Like how much of for me, there's always been like this little guilty feeling of, if I'm spending time with this person, I'm taking that time away from my kids, and trying to release myself of that guilt, because the kids are okay. The kids are fine. The kids are fed and not even worried about you. They're probably in bed or whatever the case may be, right? Or they're at daycare, because I said I could only meet you at 1 o'clock for lunch somewhere. But it's relieving that idea of, well, if I'm giving my time here, then they're suffering because I'm not there, which is false, actually, because, if you're the mamas that are here, I know that you guys are the mamas that put your kids first, that you probably rescheduled that date 10 times before you actually did it because your kid needed something or whatever. So I know we're not neglecting these kids to go on a date with some man, right? But it's also that fear of, so Jagger is none the wiser, but Ethan is old enough to be like, oh, mama went on a date, right? And it's not just my feelings and my expectations that are involved when I start dating someone, right? Because there's something lacking for them too. And so while I'm looking for love and I'm looking for a partner and companionship, they might just be looking for a friend, you know? Or maybe he's like, yeah, mama needs to date somebody so she can leave me alone, so she can have something to do. Whatever their expectations are, but the big one is old enough to understand because he has his little girlfriends here and there too, right? What that means. And like every time there is a date, that curiosity that is spiked in him, as to, I wonder who this guy is. I wonder if mama likes him. I wonder, how long he'll be around, those type of things. And it's not wanting to continually disappoint them also, because I can handle my feelings. I can handle being hurt. I can handle being sad for a little bit. I've gotten used to heartbreak, so I can handle that too. But it's their broken heart and their expectations and their having to do it all over again that kind of sucks, right? But there's this internal battle that happens when you decide, okay, I'm ready to actually be in a relationship. I want and I long for actual real connection and a partner, and admitting that to yourself, and then putting yourself out there enough to letting your walls down, and trusting again enough to allow someone to even come in and try, right? Because there's one thing, dating is one thing. You can go on a series of dates with a series of people and never take it seriously and just have a series of first and second dates and just be like, that's just all I want. I just want somebody to hang out with. Or you can decide that, no, I want a future. I want a lifelong companion. I want a partner. I want whoever has been designed by God to be my person. I want to meet that person. I want to find them. I want to start our lives together. I want to figure this thing out. Once you have decided that, it sounds so simple, but it's not. And there's no right answer. Do I let him meet my kids in 3 weeks, or do I wait 6 months, or do I wait a year? How soon into dating do I tell them that my children even exist? Or do I explain my situation and how I'm doing this on my own? Will that scare them away? Will they think that I'm here for, because I need help? Or will that make them see the strength in what I am doing and appreciate the fact that I even made time to come? I found a time to even come out here and give you 2 or 3 hours of my time. And then in Houston, we talk about this all the time. Houston is 2 hours away from Houston. Depending on where this man picked for a date, the date could be an hour and a half, but it took me 45 minutes to get there and now an hour to get back. Now I've been gone for 4 hours. I have given you, a stranger, 4 hours of my day. You're welcome. All of this in the hopes of just finding somebody. Because yes, I'm a mom, right? That's never going to change. In 50 years, if God gives me that much more time on earth, not only will I be a mom, but I'll probably be a grandmom, right? Like, that is the one constant in my life that is not going to change. I will always be somebody's mother. I'll eventually be somebody's grandmother. And if I am granted enough time on this earth, I might actually be able to see at least one of my great grandkids, right? But I'm a mom, yes, but I'm also a whole human, a woman with a heart, and I'm still hopeful, and I still believe in love, and I still believe that there is someone who is out there and special enough and designed just for us in our unique situation, in our unique circumstance, and what our life looks like, and they fit in, right, like the perfect piece of the puzzle that was missing. And while we are picking pieces to see if they fit, here and there, we will eventually find that person. And it's staying open to that, and it's believing that you are worthy of that. And there is no blueprint. There's no right or wrong answer. It's going to look different every time. So no one can tell you, oh, it's too soon for this, or well, you guys just met, or this is the timeline for when, when they can come over, or when you go on a date, or when you say I love you, or whatever. There is no rhyme or reason for any of it. But just being open to it and allowing yourself to believe that you are, again, worthy of it, because you are. There was a period in my last relationship. It didn't last very long. We were together for maybe 5 or 6 months. It kind of fizzled out. So I'll say 6 months, because when at the 6 month point, no one had officially ended it, even though whatever. But there was a point in my last relationship where I was questioning what I brought to the table, right? Because we have a tendency to sometimes feel like we come with baggage, right? And not that the kids are baggage, but maybe the baggage is dealing with the other parent of your child, right? Or maybe the baggage is just the past trauma from the previous relationships, right? Whatever you believe that your baggage is. And so you question, am I even worthy? What do I bring to the table? Why would somebody even want to be with me in my situation? And what you have to remember, and what I want you to tell yourself, is that you're not baggage. Your wisdom, your resilience, and your life experience, right? There are things that I'm 37, a 37-year-old with no children. Yes, we've lived the same amount of years, but the experiences that I've gone through are very different than the experiences that you've gone through. The resilience that it took to be a mom for 15 years on my own, not to say that that person didn't go through trials and tribulations and things where they had to find resilience, but it's a different thing, right? The wisdom that I've had to acquire in order to navigate life while teaching another human how to be a decent human. There is a level of wisdom that comes from that you don't get just from existing, right? As a solo mom, or even a mom period, you've learned how to love so deeply and fiercely that the person who will eventually get your heart will be the luckiest person on the planet, right? Because there is a different level of how I appreciate the people who I love, and how I love on the people who I love. Because as a mother, I've learned to put someone else's needs before me. And yes, not to say that a wife who does not have children couldn't do that or wouldn't do that. But I've already learned that. I've already had to live that. There's a different level of it when you're a mom. And again, married mothers who might be here, you might agree with that, right? You loved your husband before you guys were parents, and you have a fierce love for him, but you never really understand what love truly is: unconditional, deep, unexplainable love, until you have a child, whether it's by birth, adoption, fostering, or whatever. The moment you become somebody's mama, the moment there is somebody else's life that you are fully responsible for, they can't eat, shower, roll over, anything without you. That is a love that can't be explained, right? And I've already done that twice. And I'm not talking about the people that I had them with, because that was twice too, right? I'm talking about the ones that there is nothing in this world that they can do that would make me stop loving them. And because I already know what that looks like and feels like, and know how to give that to someone else, when I tell you that man about to be so lucky, whoever he is, wherever you are, about to be so lucky, right? Like, I already, solo mamas, single mamas, co-parenting mamas, you already know how to do the hard things, right? So you're not asking someone to rescue you. You're already doing it. So the difference between needing help and needing partnership, and wanting companionship, and just wanting your person, is something that you bring to the table, whether you feel that way or not. I'm already paying all my bills. I'm already chauffeuring people everywhere. I'm already praying over my children and trying to build their relationship with Christ. I'm already the provider, the medical professional, the chauffeur, the nanny, the personal chef. I'm already all of those things. I don't need anybody to save me. We're doing it. And luckily for us, we're doing it well. We're not struggling. mentally sometimes, but not financially, not actually, not physically. Maybe one day I'll give you guys a tour of our home. The kids are doing all right. So it's not that we need saving. And you guys, same. You don't need anyone to save you. You don't need anyone to rescue you. You don't need anybody to come be your white knight or your superhero, your knight in shining armor or whatever, and come rescue you and your kids, because you and your kids have been doing it. You're already doing all of the hard things. You're already waking up at 6 a.m. every morning, whether you want to or not, whether you're sick or not, whether it's Saturday and you thought you were going to have an extra hour or not, right? You're already wiping the snotty noses. You're already everything. So you bring to the table a level of resilience, a level of independence, right? But there should be some type of, I have heard and seen where the narrative becomes that single mothers or solo mothers are looking for men that are going to just take care of them. And while that is nice, it'd be nice to finally not have to be the one to do it all. It'd be nice to finally not have to be fully responsible, solely responsible for every penny that comes into the household. While that might be nice, and that comes with partnership anyways, even if I didn't have children, if I got married, I'd assume that I wouldn't be doing all of it by myself, in which case I might as well have stayed by myself. But the narrative that sometimes plagues us, the myth that is out there, is that the man who comes into this situation is somehow losing because now he's taking care of kids that he didn't have, or now he has more expenses, or this, that, or whatever. And I'm here to tell you that the right person, that won't even matter to them, right? The right person will see that, dang, this girl has been doing it for all this time. I love her so much. I want to relieve her of that. I love her so much. I want to help shelter, to shoulder some of that burden. Not to say that I'm going to overnight become a kept, stay at home mom, which, I mean, if somebody wants to do that for a year for me, that's cool too. But I'm just saying that it's not that that's what you're searching for or looking for. That's the end goal, because is that really love, or is that just support, right? But the narrative that you are not worthy of having someone care for you or having someone be your partner, just because you happen to have children before you met them, release yourself of those shackles. Release yourself of that myth. Release yourself of whatever society or the other podcast, or the bitter dating advice, or whatever that may be, because it only takes one person. Your person is the only one that matters. Granted, we got to go through a little trial and error period before you find that person, unless you're lucky. I have yet to be so lucky. But I am still very much hopeful. I believe in love. I believe that there is somebody who is out there for each and every one of us. And while it might take longer for some to find their person, it does not mean that they don't exist. And it does not mean that you are not worthy of them. You and your children are both worthy of it. And you have to believe that and sit in that before you can even move forward. Because if you're going to go into the relationship feeling like you're questioning what you bring to the table, and you're questioning whether you're worthy of this person, because maybe they check a bunch of boxes, right? Like maybe physically, financially, emotionally, they check all these boxes, and you're like, dang, here I am being a broken burden. If you go into it feeling that way, you're going to sabotage yourself. And maybe that person was your person, but now we've ruined it because we've gone into it thinking we're unworthy for whatever crazy nonsense reason, right? So we're going to go ahead and release ourselves of the, what do you bring to the table? I am the table. I built the table. I harvested the wood from the tree that was outside. I'm not old enough to have planted that tree, but I could have done that too, because that is just who I am, right? believe that, make that your mantra. You don't have to bring anything to it because you built it, you provided it, and you've laid it out with all the food and all the garnishes and all of the things, right? Because mamas, you are worthy of being loved. You are worthy of feeling like a woman. You are worthy of um, the softness and the connection and all of the things that comes with finding your partner. So we want to talk about faith, standards, and staying grounded in this dating season if you're in it. It starts off with praying over your dating life and trusting God with your heart. Now, we all know that prayer, okay? Now, I don't know if you said that prayer. I know that there was one time I knew I should have did it, but I didn't want to because I had a feeling that had I done it, the Lord was going to stop it in its tracks. And that's actually eventually what happened when I finally did, was like, Lord, you know, you can go ahead and take the wheel now. He took it and ran it right off the road. But you know what? That's okay. That's okay, because he knew I wasn't supposed to be there anyways. But you have to know, you have to be willing to do that. And it's so funny. Actually, I'll give you guys a quick story. So I want to say a year and a half ago, so December of 2023, I met someone, we went on a date, nice date or whatever. He checked a bunch of boxes, actually probably all of them on paper. That's how you gotta, girl, discernment. But anyway, so he checked a lot of things on paper and added things. There was a bonus section that I didn't even know existed that he kind of checked a couple things off there too. But just like something just didn't feel right. It was just something that just wouldn't settle in my spirit, right? But I have certain prayer warriors who are in my life. Now, my Bible study group is filled of praying women. Okay, it's a women's Bible study group, and it's so funny because we didn't always do this at the end of every Bible study session, because we'd always get so into things that our hour or whatever amount of time we had would be filled. But that day, we had a little bit of time, and the moderator, the person running our Bible study, was like, because there was only like 5 or 6 of us, so the one who's like the leader of our Bible study was like, hey, what how's everybody doing? Is there anything you need prayer on? Like, what's everybody, you know, we were I think we were talking about relationships. I can't remember. It was over a year ago. My brain can barely remember last week. But long story short, I was like, guys, y'all know my situation. You guys know how long I've been single, and you know, the boys and whatever. I met someone. I really like them, but I'm not sure. I need y'all to pray for me. And literally on the call, before we got off the call, our Bible study leader, she said the prayer, and she was like, God, if it's not for her, remove it expeditiously. Bible study was on Tuesday. Thursday morning, I got a message from said person saying, hey, you know, like, you're a wonderful person, but I feel like, you know, whatever. And I was like, not you moving expeditiously. Like, why would you do that? I was having just a little, like, could you have given me a second? Guys, we had barely talked for like a week or two, but I'm stubborn. I'm gonna do what I want to do sometimes. So I let the man breathe for about 24 hours, and then I just inserted myself again. That's where I went wrong. Because God did what he was supposed to do. He did what I prayed about. He did what I asked other people. I brought other people into my business, made them pray for me. The prayer worked. And then I was like, no, that's not what I asked for, or at least not yet. But we were never at peace. I dated this person for maybe 2 weeks. It was literally just dating, because we never moved past that. We went on like 1 or 2 dates, hung out once or twice or whatever. But something, I can't even tell you how the relationship, because I just don't know how else to define it. You know, I wasn't dating anyone else at that time. Mainly because I just didn't meet anybody, not because I was like trying to be exclusive at the time. But it ended in such a way, finally, because twice, I found a way to kind of reignite, I guess. Right. And because again, I maybe for him, I checked certain boxes too. Each time we bumped into each other, we found we would try again. We would try again until finally, like, again, I can't even tell you what happened. That's how you know it had nothing to do with me or him, maybe either. But it was just like, it just ended again abruptly, but in a way that felt so final. Whereas, like, yeah, God said no, let's leave that alone. But I think it's so funny because, again, prayer works, first of all, whether you want it to or not, but you got to be ready for that. You got to be ready for God to answer that, for God to answer that prayer. But if you want him to be at the center of your relationship, you cannot start that relationship without him, right? You cannot start your dating season without him. You cannot start your, what is it past dating when you become boyfriend and girlfriend? Your exclusivity? What is it? I don't know. You guys tell me. I don't know the word for it. Also because, quick tidbit, I was trying to find a word for that. The only two long-term serious relationships that I've been in, being with their fathers, each of, their respective fathers, I've never dated them. We went straight from being friends to being together because I had known them each for years prior. So I feel like, and maybe I'm defining it wrong, but to me, dating is that period before you say, yes, I'm your girlfriend, you're my boyfriend, or we're exclusively just together, where you're getting to know the person and deciding whether you want to go that far, right? But with Ethan's father, Ethan being my oldest, I met him and his family when I was 6 years old. We'll get into that story another day. I met him when I was 6. We started liking each other when I was 14. But he was 4 years older than me. So when I was 14, he was 18. We know we can't do that. Really, when I was 16, I was like, I'm going to marry that boy. We weren't even together yet. We were still just, our families knew each other. Again, and I'll explain more about that maybe in another episode. And then the moment I turned 18 in May, that December, we started dating. So we were together. That man told me I was his girl and that was it. And what was I about to say? I'd been waiting 4 years already. So I was like, yes. Right. And the rest is history. So that was that person. I knew him for 12 years. Yeah. I knew him for 12 years. Okay. There was no dating. First we were family friends and then we were together. And then I met Jagger's father through friends. I was still with Ethan's father at the time. There's no overlap there. I just want to throw that out there. But through mutual acquaintances, we met even before I had Ethan. Right. And then Ethan's father and I separated when he was 2, was still going back and forth until he was 4. But when Jagger's father found out that I was officially done, like he had apparently been waiting for 5 years, because we had known each other for 5 years before we were in a relationship. I had officially was like all ties cut with Ethan's father. And then somehow, they be knowing. It's just like the moment you have a second to breathe, they just be popping out of nowhere. And then, cause we hadn't spoken for months, and then all of a sudden he hit me up and he's like, so what's going on with your husband? And I'm like, I ain't got one of those anymore. And so he was like, good, finally, I've been waiting. I don't understand that. At this, hindsight is 2020, but we'll get into all those little tidbits. So the thing about it is, like, dating for me has always been weird because I didn't start dating until my mid-30s. Every person that I've ever been in a relationship with, I knew before. We skipped the dating phase. By the time we were together, we had decided that we were together. I know you, you know me. There's no secrets here. So let's just do this thing, right? And so now trying to date at 37, it's a little weird. It's a little tricky. But putting God in the middle of that, and now knowing that I want him in the middle, that he wasn't always at the center of my relationships. I had a relationship with God, but I never made it a requirement of the men I was with. I knew they knew God because, some were raised Catholic, and they've even had like their communions and this and that and whatever. And others grew up in church, but I never made it a requirement And maybe that's where I went wrong. Maybe that was the detriment, and probably was, right? Because while I was trying to walk in alignment, while I was trying to walk in purpose, they was just out here, right? So making that prayer, making that request of God to be in the center and to bring me a God-fearing man, who can continue to align our faiths and meet the standards that I have set for myself without judgment and without ridicule, is paramount, right? And knowing the difference between your type and your truth. I have a type. I don't think I've actually dated my type. Not on paper. You know, we all say we want somebody, what, 6'2", chocolate, certain build, whatever. I don't think I've ever been close to what I think my type is. And maybe I don't have a type. Maybe that's what that is. Maybe we have an ideal physique, but does that really matter? What is his character? What is his emotional maturity? How is his relationship with his family? You know, those are things that are the most important. And in keeping your faith and your standards in keeping God centered in your relationship, you want to remember that your boundaries are biblical. You can say no and still be loving. You can say that's not for me and still be soft, right? And we want to remember that chemistry alone isn't always confirmation. You can have chemistry with Joe Schmo, and y'all get along and you have the same sense of humor, and again, you guys check the boxes of each other's individual or respective list, and that does not mean it's confirmation from God that you're supposed to be with this person. But seeking someone who honors both your motherhood and your womanhood is going to be the beginning of knowing that this person was sent for you, right? Because God won't send someone into your life that makes you question your worth, or makes you question your boundaries, or makes you question your priorities, right? Whoever is set for you, whoever he is creating and building and molding to be your perfect partner, your perfect person, is going to come and elevate all of that, is going to come and make all of that feel like a breeze, and you'll know it. We always know it's that discernment. But when you pray for discernment, you want to pray that you are hearing and understanding the difference between the voice of God and the voice of deception. Because one thing that I have learned is that when you are seeking his voice, the devil will try to speak in that moment also. And you have to be deep in the book. You have to be deep in your prayer. You have to be on your knees, girl, in your closet, wherever it is that you find silence and you find peace, so that you can actually hear whose voice is that. Because sometimes when you want something bad enough, even when it's against his will, we will make ourselves believe that us wanting it so bad, or us finding this excuse, or our own invasive thoughts telling us that, oh yeah, this is what's for me, we will allow ourselves to believe that that is his voice. And it's not, right? But then the signs start coming, then the flags start raising, and are they red or are they green? And we're going to talk about that in a second. But when you allow him to be the center from the very beginning, when you allow him to lead, when you're like, God, where you go, I will follow, that is when you can kind of not fully relax. As again, the more you walk with him, the more the other dude be trying to he be trying to tussle, right? So we want to just be deeply rooted, if that is truly what is a requirement for you. And it should be, because someone shouldn't be able to come into your home and maybe not make you, all of a sudden you start missing Sunday service. All of a sudden you guys are going on dates on Wednesday instead of Bible study, right? All of a sudden, the gospel station that you used to listen to is now, I don't know, pick a genre, really doesn't matter, right? And so when you start having to make certain shifts, instead of that person actually instead of that person putting you onto a new gospel song or a new worship song that you ain't even heard about, now that's your jam, right? Instead of you guys praying together and praying over your relationship, you are hiding the fact that you're praying over your gracing your food, right? You're not in alignment. You're not in alignment, and you know that in the back of your mind something is screaming at you, this ain't it, this ain't it, this ain't it. But it feels so good to feel loved, and it feels so good to feel seen, and it feels so good to be appreciated. But is it coming from the right place, right? Is it coming from the right person? Because we don't need that attention from just anyone. Because remember what we just talked about, when we already are choosing to take time away from the most important parts of our lives in order to build these relationships. Do you want to do that for just anybody? Food for thought. So let's get into some of the red flags, green flags too, and protecting your peace while deciphering all of them, right? Because what are some red flags? Now, this is not an exhaustive list. I go ahead and add, in the comments, what other red flags you guys think some of our mama friends should be looking out for. For me, I'm going to say that some of the red flags that are kind of blanket, no matter what, and even in friendships that you should look at and be aware of, is inconsistency, disrespect towards your parenting, or rushing access to your kids, or love bombing. The love bombing. That's a big one. That's a real one. But inconsistency, one thing again we talked about in other episodes, how routine and consistency is what helps us as solo mamas stay on top of things, so we don't feel like the world is caving in on us, so that our kids have some type of structure. But if their inconsistency is now feeding into you, where you are now not in alignment, that's a red flag. When I say disrespect towards your parenting, it can mean different things for each of you, right? For each of us is what I meant to say, because we all have different parenting styles. And I don't mean whether you're a gentle parent or not, or, whether you're a fast food parent or not. That's not what I'm talking about. Because even within your own household, there's ways that you individually parent each child. I can't parent Ethan, who is now 15, the same way that I parent Jagger, who is still 4, right? But if that person comes into your situation and you feel like it is a struggle with parenting, they don't respect some of the boundaries that you've already built with your children, or some of the routines or whatever, and you feel like there's a constant battle there, that doesn't make sense. Because also keep in mind, if this is the person that you marry, you guys will eventually have a child together. So if they are not on board or aligned with the way that you parent, and you maybe have some hesitation with the way that they parent, what does that look like with the one that belongs to the both of you, right? And rushing access to your kids. Now, if it is moving genuinely in a direction where you feel safe and secure in that meeting, because again, there's no timeline for that. There are people who have met, fallen in love, engaged, married within 3 months. Now, I've never seen, in my personal experience or even through social media, people who are married and it happened that quickly. Because, not married, people who are parents and it happened that quickly, only because, kids add a little bit of extra time to that timeline, in my opinion. But if they're, you guys went on date 1 and by date 2, they're like, ooh, let's take the kids to the bouncy place. You got to pray on that one. This is where we ask the Lord for discernment. Lord, is this you saying that this is my person, and so what are we waiting for? Or is this person like, why you need to meet my kids? I don't even know you yet, sir. What is your last name? What is your mama's name? What is your social security number? Why are they a part of this equation? So you want to discernment, prayer. These are going to be the things that's going to help you get through some of that. But there are green flags too, right? Everything is not negative. There is light, there is positivity in all of this too. Some of the green flags are going to be patience, clear communication, emotional maturity, respect for your boundaries, right? Because the longer that you are a single or solo parent, the higher your walls are, right? The more of an island you've become. Um, and the right person is going to respect that and not rush that or not make you feel bad about that. And it's not a matter of being like the strong, independent woman who doesn't need a man. No one said that. But at the same time, I've had to be strong. I've had to be independent. I've had to do it all. So there is going to be a level of, you got to give me a second to get used to having you there. And the right person is not going to make you feel bad about that. They will have patience with you, but they'll also be able to communicate, hey, when you did, I know that they're not my kids yet, but when you did this while I was trying to tell you this, here is how I was trying to help you, whatever that looks like. But that comes with emotional maturity. That person is going to have to be able to understand that it's not about them, and it's not that you don't respect them or their opinions or their values. But I do need patience from you, right? Like, I'm not going to overnight just hand over the reins of parenting to someone or open up my entire heart. Like, I'm open because I'm here, but I have to protect myself in order to protect my kids. And again, the right person will understand that, because the bottom line is that your kids don't need a parent replacement, right? They need a mama who's at peace. And so, yes, the goal is, especially when you're a solo parent, maybe not so much a single co-parenting parent, because your child does have the other parent involved, so you don't need someone to replace them. But even as a solo mama, I don't need someone to replace Ethan's father. You can't replace his father. His father was an active part of his life until he passed away. He doesn't need a replacement. Even Jagger, who's never met his father, doesn't need a replacement. He needs someone who's going to come in and be there. Yes, be a parent to them, but be my piece, because that's what allows us to become whole, a unit, right? And what I've learned and what I've seen is that when you are happy and you are at peace, your children feel that too. And that will also kind of bind your children and the right partner together as well. But there is no timeline for that. There is no blueprint for that. Shoot. And if we're being honest, sometimes because of some of the red flags, the love bombing and the whatever else, you might think that that's what it is. And I've fallen, unfortunately, a victim of that as well, where everything seemed correct. Everything seemed like, hey, this all makes sense. And then it wasn't what it was, what I thought, which life experiences, we chuck that, in the lessons learned pile, and we move on, right? We don't keep that from making us jaded. We don't let that be the, you know what, I'm tired, I'm never doing this again. I was there for a moment, but I'm not going to sit and dwell in that, because again, I believe in love. I believe that there is somebody out there who can deal with my crazy stubbornness and my quiet strength and all the other things that are there, because you can be in love and still prioritize peace and alignment, right? I want you to just know that dating isn't necessarily a distraction. It's a decision. It's a decision that you've made. You're allowed to want romance without being shamed for it. You don't owe anyone access to you, your body, your time, or whatever else, just because you have decided that you are in this season of dating. And you can give yourself permission to go slow, to, laugh, learn, try again. Like, give yourself permission to be open, be soft, right? Because your story isn't over, even if the last chapter broke you. And it can. One of those chapters broke me so much that I waited 4.5 years to put myself back out there again. And not that broke you so much that you couldn't function or you couldn't parent or you couldn't whatever. Like, in the relationship realm, it was like, I don't want to do that again. Or maybe, me and my kiddos are good on our own. Maybe you did go through that, but you your story isn't over, right? Like, whether you're 25 or 55, like your story isn't over. That chapter has closed, and it might have taken a chapter or two of healing and growth and therapy and prayer, before you were ready to start again, right? Like, you ever seen those super long books where it's unit one has 5 chapters, then unit 2 has has 6 chapters. Maybe unit 2 was jacked up, it ended up really bad, right, in the middle of unit 2, and then we had to do a lot of healing in unit 2, and unit 3 might be that person that you've been waiting for, because healing doesn't mean that you never date again. It means that you know how to walk away, walk away from whatever's going to cost you your peace, right? As we learn and we take in those lessons and we take it on the chin because that one was the wrong one or whatever, those lessons that you are learning is not supposed to get us to the I'm never doing this again. It's supposed to get us to the okay, now I know what to look for. Now my discernment is even more refined. Now my prayer is even more specific, right? Because you can be healed, whole, and still be open to love. God doesn't call us to be hardened. He calls us to just use discernment. So I leave you with this. You are not too broken, too late, too busy to be loved well. You deserve a partner who sees your strengths, your softness, your scars, and still chooses you fully. Okay? Until that person comes, you are already whole, you are already enough, and you are already loved. They are just there to add the little cherry on top. Today's verse is going to be Song of Songs, chapter 4, verse 7. You are altogether beautiful, my darling. There is no flaw in you. If this episode touched your heart, pass it along to a mama who's been questioning if love is still for her. It is. And so is healing, softness, and joy. Thanks for tuning in to the Solo Mama Show. As always, keep your crown high, your snacks stacked, and I'll see you next week. Follow, share, and stay lifted, mamas. Love you. Bye.